Hey everyone! Thanks for joining me for another video. If you're new here, I'm Diana. I'm a higher education professional. I work at a private institution on the East Coast. If you want to learn more about me, I will link my introduction here. And today I wanted to do a video about tips for first generation students. If you've watched any of my past videos, you know that I am a first generation low income student. And so what I want to do is I want to sort of talk about what that means, because some people aren't always clear. They hear those words, but they don't always know if it applies to them or whose definition they're using. The definition we'll be using is that a first generation student is someone whose parents have not obtained a bachelor's undergraduate degree. For me, that definitely applies. My dad got his GED. My mom, I believe got her associates, but did not finish a bachelor's. Neither of them did complete a college 4-year degree. The other thing that I feel like I'm just gonna admit a lot of things that I thought were true, but weren't. And they're gonna sound silly, but it's okay. One of the things that I thought was true was that if your older siblings went to college, that meant you weren't first gen because they were the first one in your family to go to college. That's not true. My sister, she ended up going to Haskell. She didn't complete either, but I thought because she had gone to college that I was no longer first gen. She was the first in our family to go. So that was just, I mean, it's a little embarrassing now to think that, but that's really what I thought. And I thought I would just admit that, because I just never thought that that was me. But it really has to do with the fact that, your parents didn't take that path, and so now you're the first person. The experiences that you now have, because neither of your parents have gone to college, is that you have a disadvantage, so to speak, that you don't know exactly what is expected to go to college now. You don't know what the finance is like, the living situations, the application processes, all that stuff. It's new to you because you haven't had someone in your life to really show you the ropes. In comparison to someone who does have parents who are highly educated and have gone through college, they will have an upper hand in the fact that their parents are more confident in guiding them there and talking to them about it and all those kinds of things that a lot of first gen students may not experience. And then the other part of that is being from a low income background. So for me, I did come from a very low income background. I don't want to get too much into the details. I guess that's something that is still, I struggle with, is talking about that. And I also don't want to be a version of trauma porn of this is my story and kind of throw that onto everybody. But yeah, so I did come from a very low income background. So because of the situation that I grew up with, I was eligible for certain scholarships, and luckily I was awarded the Gates Millennium Scholarship, which is a merit-based scholarship. So you had to have the grades, the recognition and awards, and positions that you've done all through high school. But when I did go into college, I was fully Pell eligible for federal funding. And the federal Pell Grant is what provides students who come from low-income backgrounds to have additional funds for their schooling. And so I was fully Pell eligible because I was under the threshold. I was well under the threshold of the income requirement. And so I used that for most of my undergraduate career. So let's go ahead and get started in the tips that I have for you all today. So the first thing I want to put down is finding funding. I knew from my freshman year of high school that I had to get the Gates Millennium Scholarship. I saw it and I knew I had to go for it. So I started preparing, and I also knew college was my thing. I knew college was going to be my path. And so I was trying to make the grades. I was being really involved. I was doing everything I possibly could, everything that I knew a college or university might find appealing. And I really enjoyed it. I went to a boarding school. If you know anything about my story, I went to a tribal boarding school, and I had nothing, I only had school to focus on, and so I loved it. It kept me busy, kept me out of trouble. I loved it. So I was always in clubs and all those kinds of things. Finding funding, I felt was my absolute job my senior year. I put so much time into it. I knew how valuable it was. So if you are a first gen low income student, please please try to put as much effort into finding scholarships as you can, junior and senior year. I think I won an essay contest my junior year, so those funds, you know, they can go to your schooling as well. So you don't have to wait till senior year. You can start junior year as well. If you can at all, do not get loans. Those are like the absolute last resort. Like, please find scholarships, find like essay contests, find grants, because you don't have to pay grants back. So focus on your funding. Always consider a community college as a possibility. And if you haven't seen my other video already, I did a video about the Ivy League versus community colleges. I compare the two institutions, the benefits, the pros and cons, all that. So I'll link that up here and I'll also link it down below. Number 2 is pick the right institution for you. So little backstory, I went to a bunch of college summer programs. I did one at the Institute of American Indian Arts called Expanding the Circle. I don't think it's a program anymore. Then I also went to College Horizons. I did all these programs. I was always trying to keep busy in the summer. I knew about like the Ivy League. I knew about like local universities from like OU and OSU in Oklahoma. But I knew what I wanted to study. I wanted to focus on Indigenous topics. I wanted to take Navajo classes, and I didn't think I could do that at an Ivy League. You can. It is possible, at least at Yale. I also just didn't see myself there. Just couldn't. And I also wanted to be closer to my family because I lived mostly in Oklahoma, and my family was in Arizona. So I ended up deciding to go to Oklahoma State, which I automatically knew as soon as I started there freshman year. Oklahoma State University was too big for me. It was just so big, it was insane. I couldn't handle all the people, the huge classes. I was coming from a tiny little high school, and I just couldn't do it. It didn't fit, and I thought I could do it, but I couldn't. And so my tip would be just to really think about what you want, your comfort level, all those things. Just think carefully about it and pick what's right for you. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you a little story. It's just like a first gen story, but I'm so embarrassed by it, but I'll tell you anyway. My first English course that I took at Oklahoma State, I turned in my first paper. I think it was my first draft. I turned it in and I hand wrote it on like college ruled paper, and it's so embarrassing, but I didn't know that my professor wanted my first draft like actually typed out, you know, formatted, and I wasn't very confident in my like MLA abilities. Like I hadn't learned, and MLA is it's a format in the way that you write your papers. Your name and the date, the class, the name of the professor on the top side, and then you like start your paragraph, and there's like rules about how to format an MLA paper, or if you do APA, which is another like college thing that you might not know about if you didn't learn about it in high school. But I just hand wrote this thing, turned it in, and my professor gave it back to me, and she was just like, this needs to be typed on da da da, and she just like, I was so glad like I picked it up, and like we were leaving for class. I think it was like a class later, like a week later. But I was just like, oh my god. Everyone else had turned in like computer. I was just like, man, I'm so good. It's just something I didn't know. I thought it would be fine. I thought my final draft could be typed, but she wanted all the drafts to be typed. So the other thing that I would say for a first-gen low-income student is that if you have gotten a lot of funding and you've got your Pell Grant and things like that, once all of your schooling is paid for, a refund may be issued to you. And I want you to be really careful, because you may have never had that much money in your entire life. And sometimes, like, I was fully Pell Grant eligible, so my refund during my undergrad was like $3,400 or something. That's a lot of money for an 18-year-old. And I didn't know how to handle it. I bought a lot of stuff I shouldn't have bought. I spent a lot of money, ate out a lot, all those kinds of things. I just kept buying stuff because I just didn't know how to manage my money. I didn't have enough money to get home. Went from Oklahoma State to Northern Arizona University and decided to go there because it was a better fit for me. So from NAU, I was trying to get back home to Oklahoma. Didn't have enough money. This happened like multiple times, let me tell you. Like, please don't make the mistake that I did. And I'll tell you one story. So when I ended up working at a public institution, I'm not going to tell their names, but I had a student who came in and they were so frustrated because they were like, why do I have another charge on my account? Why is it saying that I owe like this amount of money? What we ended up finding out is that the university had charged them for all the tuition, all the fees, all those kinds of things, but a charge came later for their rent for the next month. It was just a glitch. It didn't happen all the time to every student, but sometimes one of those rent charges for their dorm came later. And so this student had gotten their refund, and I could see, you know, on my computer screen, they got a very substantial refund from their scholarships, from Pell Grant and all those things. They basically told me, like, they kind of blew their money and they were going to spend it elsewhere, and now they had a bill. And so it was a really tough situation. They were not prepared for it, and they didn't anticipate. They thought their bill was taken care of for the whole semester, and sometimes it's not always that way. So please be careful with your money. Don't be like me. Please don't be like the other student. There's more stories out there. Just learn from them. My next tip would be to build relationships with your professor. Because they're not all professors. Some of them are graduate students. Some of them are, you know, teaching assistants, or, you know, they're not all like PhDs and stuff. But some of them are really cool, and they will offer you office hours. Take them up on it. I know it's awkward and it's weird to be like in a space with your teacher, but oftentimes no one's taking advantage of them. What I really want to impress upon other first generation and low income students is that what I learned and what I've seen in research is that those who are not first gen and those who have had guidance on college or have gone to really great schools and things like that, not to say you don't have these skills, but more often than not, they're very prepared to talk and have the confidence and have the like self-advocacy to go and like say like, I don't understand this, I need help with this. And I was always scared. I didn't want my professors to think I was not intelligent, like I couldn't handle the curriculum, I couldn't handle the workload. I didn't want them to think that. And so I would always like think I didn't need to go. But when you go and you ask clarifying questions, or if you don't understand a paper that's coming up, and they might even guide you to other resources, like there's a writing center, there's a tutor, there's like all these resources that you were eligible for but you didn't know about. To another first gen student, please build those relationships with your professors. Those who are not first gen are doing these things. Yeah, they're getting really good references, letters of recommendation. So it's really kind of increasing this, you know, gap between the first generation groups and then those who are not first generation, because now those other individuals who built those relationships and talked to these professors or TAs or whoever, they're getting all those letters. They're getting all those letters of recommendation and things, and it's pushing them even more forward to get internships, to fellowships, summer work jobs, all those things. So they have understood that process. I didn't know that because I just didn't know how powerful that relationship with a professor was. And it may not even just be with a professor, it could be with a staff member. If you go to like Native American Student Services or the intercultural, multicultural office, you know, LGBTQIA office, if you build relationships with staff members, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to be able to benefit your future with those relationships that you're building with them. Next thing I will say is make the right friends. In college, you get to choose your friends. And there's typically on a college campus, there's going to be a lot to choose from. And you want to make the right ones. And it's nice if you have people that you casually talk to, might have a lunch with, or see at a social event. But you have to really think about, like, is this person or are these groups of people like good for me? Do they build me up? Do I feel comfortable around them. Like maybe they're cool and you just might like the social comfort of it, but do they push you? Do they motivate you? Do they, like, are you able to ask them for help in certain situations? Like, you want to be able to have friends that do this for you. One of my really good college friends, she started out as my tutor, and because I really was struggling with math, I took an X-level class, which means you take this class and you get 0 credit for it. It's really just like this transition class before you get to the actual college credit. I had to take that class, and when I did, I had a really good friend of mine who offered to tutor me. She was my friend's sister, and so she tutored me, and she loved math, and so she was just like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, okay. And so like on a weekly, like sometimes twice a week, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna do my homework and I want you to review it. And so she would review, I'd show all my work and everything, and she would be like, this is, where you made the mistake. And so I just felt like she was so, for one, she's so generous to give her time, and she was so kind in giving me feedback. And her sister, just their whole family is just like so sincere and sweet. I wanted that kind of impact on my life. I wanted that kind of presence in my life. So when you choose friends in college, please think carefully if they're leading you down the right path or if they might be leading you down another path. So that's my last tip, and I hope this video didn't go on too long, but please let me know if you have any more questions. I'm happy to help other first-generation low-income students. And let me know if you like this video. If you have other video topics that you'd like me to talk about, I'm happy to do that as well. Like this video if it was helpful. Share with other people if you feel like they might find it helpful. Comment down below if you have any more questions. I will see you all in the next video. Bye.